What if Akali was a heroic spirit? Alter Edition. Technically a dual summon, known as the Star's Shadow. She'd be summoned as a Lancer. She's much faster than her Assassin or Caster counterparts. She'd possess a skill called Starry Night. Under the light of the stars, she charges mana just a little bit at a time. She'd possess another skill called Starless Night. Despite being all glowy, she can make herself blend in with dark shadows. But when she's like this, she can't charge mana, so she has to be in one or the other. Summoned alongside her is Umi, her little manta ray. Umi's always draining little bits of mana for Akali and can act away from her as well. Umi also acts as an amplifier for Akali's Noble Phantasm. Her Noble Phantasm is roughly the same as her Assassin's counterpart, Shadow's Execution. The difference is, if Umi is still with her, Umi can spot and mark any opponent for execution. As a bonus, she possesses a dual Noble Phantasm with Kaisa. Starfall. What if Dung Eater was a heroic spirit, known as
the loathsome Dung Eater, berserk, booty bomb banqueter, crazed caca consumer, evil excrement enjoyer, the garish guano Sir Gideon Offney.
He'd be summoned as a berserker. Why, you ask? Read his name again. Dung Eater doesn't have any unique skills, but he does have a very taboo Noble Phantasm. He eats your soul through your ass. Oh. What if Eula was a heroic spirit?
Dance of Sacrifice, Act 3. Flickering Candlelight.
Eula Lawrence, known as the captain of the Knights of Favonius, the Shimmering Wave, the Charm of Mondstadt, she'd be summoned as a saber. Despite her stature, despite having a giant sword, Eula is actually very agile. She'd possess a skill called Flickering Candlelight. The longer she's left allowed to dance, the stronger she gets. The sword she carries, Glacial Seal, acts as two Noble Phantasms, an anti-unit and an anti-army. What if Evelyn was a heroic spirit?
Let's see. Whose life shall I ruin today?
Known as the Demon of Pain, she'd be summoned as an assassin. Evelyn's more of a wraith and a parasite than a heroic spirit. During the, mana transfer, she'll take more mana than she needs from her master's life force, so she can survive independently without a master, so long she has enough mana to sustain herself. She'd possess a skill called Demonic Shade. She'll fade into a target's shadow and influence their thoughts. She'd possess another skill called Allure and Desire. Upon first seeing Evelyn, she appears to others as the thing they desire most. This can play into her anti-unit Noble Phantasm, Agony's Embrace. Using Allure and Desire, she can lure her prey in. She'll bind her opponent, and then I'm sure you can figure out the rest. What if Garland was a heroic spirit?
I don't give a fuck who you are!
True name, Jack Garland, known as the Knight of Discord, the Hand of Destruction, or the Demon of Cornelia. He could fit in virtually every class, but let's say he's a saber. If you summon Garland, you win. He'd possess a skill called Chaos Loop. As soon as he's summoned, he creates a time loop that won't be broken until he wins. He'd possess another skill called Soul Burst. Whenever he defeats an enemy, they become crystal, that radiates mana. His Noble Phantasm is an anti-army type. Rebellion. When this sword is in his hand, he appears to enemies as the god of destruction himself. What if Gurman was a heroic spirit? Known as the First Hunter, or the Madman in the Dream, he'd be summoned as a Lancer. He'd possess the skill Hunter's Insight. After he's summoned, he'll gain random, almost out of nowhere, charges of mana. He'd possess two Noble Phantasms. The first is an anti-unit type, the Burial Scythe. His second Noble Phantasm is both an anti-world type and an anti-mind type, the Hunter's Dream. He'll create a reality marvel of the workshop that'll invade the enemy's mind. And one of two things will happen, provided the opponent isn't strong enough to withstand it. They'll go crazy, and Gurman will execute them in their madness. Or they'll be enthralled by the beauty of the dream, and Gurman will still kill them. What if Kaisa was a heroic spirit? Alter Edition. Summoned as a caster, she'd be known as the Brightest Star. Unlike her archer counterpart, she has a more traditional Noble Phantasm, but can only be activated as a last resort. Supernova. Supernova nukes her surrounding area and gives Kaisa a major power boost. Summoned alongside her is Ina, her little bunny friend. Ina is to Kaisa as what Umi is to Akali. The difference is when Kaisa's Supernova is active, Ina can still gather more mana, and it can prolong the effects of Supernova. She'd possess the dual Noble Phantasm with Akali as well. Starfall. What if Lady Maria was a heroic spirit?
A corpse should be left well alone.
Also called the Hunter of the Astral Clock Tower, the Prisoner of the Nightmare, or the corpse better left alone. She'd be summoned as a saber, unlike Gurman. Like Gurman, she'd possess the skill Hunter's Insight. Unlike Gurman, she'd possess the skill Hunter's Waltz. Due to her nature, you have to defeat her twice to really beat her. She'd possess two Noble Phantasms. The first, Rakuyo, an anti-unit type. She has quite the array of techniques and blood magic at her disposal. The second is an anti-world and an anti-mind type. The Hunter's Nightmare. She'll create a reality marble of the clock tower. Unless the opponent is strong enough to resist, the longer an enemy stays in the clock tower, they will start to go mad. What if the Levier twins were heroic spirits?
Another self-important little brat. Just what we need.
Reminds me of my childhood.
They could be summoned either together or independently as casters. Together, they'd possess the skill Levier Legacy and Scion's Defiant. Their magic skills are very high. They play off each other so well, and you'll need to knock both of them down twice to really beat them. Independently, Alizé's sword skills could rival some sabers. Her Noble Phantasm is an anti-army type. Clarion. Alphino, on his own, is like a magic Swiss army knife. He's got an array of healing capabilities and black magic at his disposal. His accuracy is also on par with most archers. His Noble Phantasm is also anti-army. Hagnia. What if Melania was a heroic spirit?
And I have never known defeat.
She could be considered a divine spirit. She'd be known as the Blade of Mikola, or the Scarlet Bloom, and be summoned as a saber. A perfect candidate for Grand Saber. Due to living with the Scarlet Rot, she has an extreme resistance to magic, and good lord, she could take a hit. She'd possess, oh god, 4 Noble Phantasms. Her sword, the Hand of Melania, will heal her for every strike she lands. Accompanied with the sword is a technique, the Waterfowl Dance. Like other notable Fate servants, she'd possess the skill Battle Continuation, but this will lead into her next Noble Phantasm, Scarlet Bloom. Upon her defeat, she'll create a reality marble of the Haligtree, and she'll become her goddess self. Her final Noble Phantasm, Scarlet Aeonia. She'll create that blooming flower, and the longer you stay in her reality marble, the quicker you'll rot away. What if Rindo was a heroic spirit? Known as Rin Dragon, or the leader of the Wicked Twisters, he'd be summoned as a caster. I'd say you have a pretty good shot of winning the Grail if you summon Rindo. He'd be summoned as one of 2, but the second is randomly selected from Fret, or Nagi, Beat, Shoka, or even Neku. They'd possess a skill called the Tag Team. Rindo can cast a Psych, his partner can follow it up for more damage. Much like Neku and Shiki, they'd possess the skill Noise Proximity. The closer they are to each other, the stronger their individual Psychs are. His Noble Phantasm is an anti-unit type. Replay. Upon his defeat, Rindo can actually go back in time, all the way back to his summoning, provided if he has the mana, and keep creating new outcomes until he wins. What if Tifa was a heroic spirit?
What'll it be?
On an unrelated note, this fight was some straight cap! Moving on, she could be summoned as either a Berserker or a Ruler. Berserker Tifa would be called the Jewel of Sector 7. Without a doubt, she would be the most agile Berserker. She'd possess a skill called Overpower. With every strike she continues to land, she gains more and more mana. She'd possess another skill called True Strike. If she hits her opponent in just the right spot, she can actually cut off the servant's connection to their master. Her Noble Phantasm would be an anti-army type. Dolphin's Flurry. Ruler Tifa coming soon. What if Yuffie was a heroic spirit? Hi Yuffie. Bye Yuffie. Summoned as an assassin, she'd be known as the Rose of Wutai, or descendant of Shinobi. She'd possess a skill called the Wutai Ninjutsu. Due to her Wutaian heritage, she has quite the experience with magic. She can attune herself with different elements. Her Noble Phantasm is an anti-unit type. Bloodbath. As a bonus, there'd be technically 2 dual Noble Phantasms between her and Sonon. It changes depending on who takes the lead. In Yuffie's case, Autumn Dragon. What if Sonon was a heroic spirit?
I know. Spirit of Chalby?
Sonon Kusakabe. Known as the best boy, known as the Dragon of Wutai, he'd be summoned as a Lancer. Like Yuffie, he'd possess the skill Wutai Ninjutsu. His Noble Phantasm is an anti-fortress type. Dance of the Dragon. The dual Noble Phantasm between he and Yuffie changes depending on who takes the lead. In Sonon's case, Art of War.